Good morning, everyone, or good day to whatever time zone you are in. Welcome to our second session of the EnROADS Mastering EnROADS training series. Today, we're going to be talking about the EnROADS Climate Workshop. If you weren't with us last week or you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, please remember that you have a questions box in your control panel. You can use this to interact with us. There's a couple of our staff on the back end. We'll be answering your questions throughout the entire session. You'll also want to check over here for some important resources. So we might send some links in the questions box. And also you'll see some handouts that we've already uploaded for you. We're so excited you're joining us. And Drew Jones is going to be leading this session. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Drew.
All right. Thanks, Caroline. Thanks and welcome, everybody. We're thrilled that you're here. And of course, as you know, we come from Climate Interactive. My name is Andrew Jones. I'm the co-founder and co-director, and we work with MIT Sloan Sustainability Initiative to develop this simulator, this workshop, the game, everything around it. Also with UMass Lowell's Climate Change Initiative as another partner, particularly with the game that we share with the world that will be the topic of the training in a week. I gotta say that my second favorite thing to do out in this world of addressing climate change is to engage people with the En-ROADS simulator to get them to envision a future they want to see and commit themselves to making it happen. But my first favorite thing is to teach other people to do it. So this is my favorite workshop training to do. And number 7 on advanced facilitation is the other one that you'll be doing in several weeks. So I'm really happy to be here with you all. And of course, our vision is to empower you to be some of these people around the world, as you can see here on this map. And this is the map, I guess, about 2 months ago, where we had 440 events, people running En-ROADS events with, 12,000 participants. And Bindu, you're on the line right now, and Bindu just updated things this morning. She's in Nepal, and look what she changed it to. 765 events, 20,000 participants. So it went from 12,000 to 20,000 just over this last 2 months. So kind of an unlikely benefit of what's going on with people staying home is that we're just getting so much more engagement. People are hungry to engage with others, to think about how to avoid the next existential threat hitting the world, climate change. That's what we're going to be doing together. And I'm going to be helping you know how to lead the workshop around En-ROADS. As Caroline mentioned along the way, if you have any questions, write it in the box. We have a crew of people ready to answer your questions. So right now, if you have a question or something burning on your mind, go there right now and write it into the questions box. If you have a longer term, like one that's not just a 2-sentence answer, here's the email, support@climateinteractive.org. Go ahead and write it in there. Here's where we are in this series. Some of you perhaps just saw the workshop that we ran on Tuesday, and we said, oh, you should come check this out and learn how to lead it. Well, probably what we didn't tell you is that we had one introductory training a week ago. Many of you also were there, but that was webinar series of training number 1, En-ROADS 101. We're now in the second, and if you're just showing for the first time, you're fine. We're going to teach you how to lead the En-ROADS Climate Workshop. In a week, 7 days from now, and these workshops are every Thursday, we're going to teach you the game, the Climate Action Simulation game on May 28th. After that are 2 workshops just on the dynamics of the simulator. Why the heck does the red line go down? Why does it go up? What are the dynamics both of the system, most importantly, but also how the simulator captures the dynamics of energy, land, food, climate. 2 weeks, because it's really important that you understand how those dynamics work. Then there's going to be number 6 on multi-solving using En-ROADS to make connections to justice, equity, health, air, water, community, well-being, all of these important factors, co-benefits or co-costs, how to protect the most vulnerable, also how to make this just relevant to what's going on today in your communities, in your companies, in your countries. Number 7 is advanced facilitation. And then number 8, we're going to geek out on confidence building. How does this simulator compare to the integrated assessment models, to these scenarios called the SSPs and others? So you get to nerd out if you like that angle on the simulators. Also, if you haven't gotten to see an actual workshop, come on June 9th, 7 a.m., 2 p.m., invite a friend. Could, Caroline, can you send the link to this invitation, please? If you haven't seen it, so no, this training is how to lead it, but you can actually experience the workshop itself, how we lead it here on June 9th is the next time we're running it for the public. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is the context. We're going to talk about applications, a little bit about attitude and orientation, how you should think about your job as a leader of the facilitators, a leader of the workshop. Guest speakers, Alice Schmidt, Molly Sullivan, are waiting in the wings, in the green room, getting ready to talk to you about their learning journey as they learned how to do what you're learning to do right now. We're going to run a super condensed part of the workshop with some tips along the way. I'm going to talk about materials and resources, facilitation tips, and I'm going to give you some homework. And the homework will be to show it, the simulator, to somebody. It's to start practicing engaging other people with the simulator. Okay, so first we want to just lay out the context of this workshop. This is for engaging people in a whole range of areas: business and finance and government and education, civil society, and media. And we have some great news when it comes to number 5, media. I don't know how many of you saw this. Write in the question box if you did. We're really curious to see how broadly this got reported. But Bill McKibben, who wrote the first popular book about climate change back in the 80s, and founder of 350.org, who's writing this New Yorker climate crisis newsletter, just yesterday, someone sent me an email and said, "Hey, Drew, did you see that you were in the climate crisis newsletter with Beth and Climate Interactive?" Well, look, and could you, Caroline, send the link to this article and send the link to the video. So Bill McKibben asked us, would you make a video introducing En-ROADS to the readers of the New Yorker Climate Crisis newsletter? So I just sat down and made this little video. It's on YouTube right now. So go check it out later. It's the kind of thing that you could develop using the simulator to speak to your community, whoever that is. Whatever community of readers or viewers. So anyhow, this is out there. It was a really nice shout out. So that's the connection with media. But then one that's interactive with you and other people. This is the basic form that we have adopted. You're the person in the white shirt on the left. Other people are the woman in the yellow shirt on the right. You're engaging them to have an experience with the simulator that builds their capacity to take effective action on addressing climate in some way. These days, it looks a lot like this usually. Here's a Zoom interaction of us engaging other people. You're a facilitator. You're helping them think about their role in addressing climate, what's most effective, what needs to be done, building hope and possibility. Some tweets from other people. Nikki Zimmerman has been sharing about how she used it with her students. Sean with other community members. This guy, Isaac, not sure who he was with. Tariq in his business. These are all tweets of engagements. Johanna, youth activist. Jeroen, another one, is a professor with students. Of course, when this COVID-19 crisis ends, it could be with people in the business world. This is Tariq at Cargill. This is Bill Nye, science educator, science communicator. We helped him set up his own scenario, and here he is sharing it. Here is a gentleman in Tanzania who's engaging 4 other people with it. A leader from Congress, Lisa Blunt Rochester, creating her own scenario and sharing it. Or up on a stage. This could be you at this is at Sustainable Business Summit by Bloomberg. This is a session that Michael Sonnenfeld and I ran in U.S. Congress for members of the House of Representatives. Another one in Indonesia with Dr. Jason Jay, one-on-one with a congressperson. And the result of it, of course, is a positive experience. Here's former Secretary of State John Kerry saying En-ROADS is a climate crisis game changer for policymakers. And one note about this, he's saying En-ROADS is, but it's not En-ROADS. There are dozens of simulators out there that capture the same dynamics as En-ROADS, integrated assessment models, et cetera. What he's really talking about is the workshop, the experience. So what we're learning today is how to embed software. It's just a mathematical model, but it's more importantly embedded in a learning experience. We're going to be talking about how to design a powerful learning experience around that mathematical model. That's what we're about today. To do it, you need to learn. And I wanted to introduce two people to talk a little bit about what it took, and make any suggestions or just share their experience a bit about what it was like to learn how to lead this workshop. And the first is and also what it's meant to them. So Molly Sullivan, welcome, Molly. Molly, please turn your camera on and please address the group and tell them what you've found so far from this work.
All right. Hi, I'm Molly Sullivan. I'm a stay-at-home mom and climate ambassador. I took this very training in January, and if I can do it, you absolutely can too. I learn something new every time I facilitate a workshop, and it never gets old seeing the excitement and hope on people's faces when they see what En-ROADS can do. One participant told me that it's one of the best things she's encountered to make climate conversations and thought connections happen, and I totally agree. So thank you all for being part of this, and don't worry about not knowing everything, and just keep going.
Thank you, Molly. Well said. Well said. Great. Our next speaker is Alice Schmidt, speaking to us from Vienna. And I think your camera's not working as well there, but go ahead, Alice.
Well, it is actually working. I just
oh, great, great.
Turn it on. So yeah, so about my experience. Well, I'm a bigger picture person, and having always worked at the intersection of social, environmental, and economic issues for 20 years in 30 countries, and I've always been looking for ways to multi-solve, so to basically create win-wins across the triple bottom line, as some people call it, or the people, planet, sort of profit spheres. And when it comes to environmental issues, I've always been very much aware of them. Climate change or its prevention or mitigation has been very dear to my heart, but my experience and knowledge and insight was more on the sort of in the socio-economic field. And what I've really loved about the training and the tool is that it allows you to keep a sort of bigger picture systems perspective, but that you can really dive into a lot of technical detail and get a very nuanced understanding. So I've just learned an awful lot in the training. I also loved how it was facilitated, because I also facilitate sort of other things, and some of the tips and tricks are really, really useful. And now when when facilitating these trainings myself, I've loved the fact that you get really lively and sometimes very heated discussions even with people, with participants, and that actually works across audiences, and it works even in digital seminars. Yeah, I mean, we always prefer real life seminars, but digital seminars actually work really, really well. And for me, it's almost like conducting research, because I also learn about what drives people, what they think, what the widespread misconceptions are, and that helps me, to basically understand people and sort of continue on my mission, so to speak. And what I love is when I see people having these light bulb moments in the seminars, when they really understand this connection or this driver. So I'm a big fan. Which is also why I've been promoting the training, and I'm actually really glad to see that some of my contacts from LinkedIn and others have participated. So hello, if you're out there now, and enjoy the ride.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Alice. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we roll up our sleeves. You ready? Here's the orientation that I want you to adopt as you think about facilitating, engaging other people. And one other note, as we're talking about this, I want you to think about this in a whole variety of contexts. It could be one-on-one. It could be one on a few people. It could be 20. It could be 1,000. We had 818 people on one of these workshops the other week. It could be online, it can be in person, a whole variety of settings. This could be a 10-minute conversation, 10-minute presentation, a 3-hour workshop spread out over multiple days. Whatever the setting, the key thing is to think about the role that you play. And the most important role is to think of yourself as a coach. A coach as someone who's dedicated to somebody else being as powerful and strong in service of their mission as possible. So the way to think of your participants in an En-ROADS workshop is these are people who want to address climate change. They want to do it well. You are building their strength and capacity to deliver upon their dreams, to make their dreams come true. That's how you should think about it. Think about it as a coach, primarily. Along the way, you're going to need to act like a teacher, a professor. You're going to need to explain things about the energy system and the climate system and the economic system, things that you've learned about the simulator, from other things in your life. But that's secondary. Try not to explain too much. Well, focus on being a coach when in doubt. You also are going to be like a playwright. You're going to design an experience that has highs, it has lows, it has excitement, it has reflection and grief. Because this is serious. Like, we want people to feel what is really alive in the world right now. Set people up for the journey that we're all on, of being alive in 2020 with some of the worst pressure on our society of COVID-19 and this looming threat of climate change. Create an experience that makes them laugh and cry, all the highs and lows. And then a fellow traveler. I'm here as a facilitator, but I'm also just another person who's just trying to do his best and join people in the journey. As you say, look, here's what I love. I really would love to see a carbon price. You get to speak from the heart about what you personally want, but don't let that dominate. You're not here primarily as a fellow traveler. You're primarily here as a coach. Be the person who, when in doubt, and if you ever get pressured or lost, think of yourself as dedicating yourself to that person and their dreams. So the things that you want to avoid along the way, if you can, you don't want this to be, I've got a technology, I've got a cool model, check out my cool model. You don't want to be in that role of like a tech support person or a tech delivery. Of course, the model is out there. Of course, anyone can have it and you can help them use it. But you're not here to give them a tool primarily. You're there to help them achieve their dreams. You also want to minimize your role as an advocate. There will be a moment when somebody says something in a workshop that you personally disagree with about how we're going to address climate change, or someone saying, oh, maybe we can't address climate change. It will be tempting for you to put on that hat as an advocate and argue with them. And do we need advocates? Absolutely. We badly need people in this role. When you run a workshop, that's not your job. Your job, ideally, is to set up somebody else to find their voice in that role. You perhaps have done it. You're trying to set somebody else who probably, maybe they never had practice, never had a chance to argue against somebody else in an advocate role. Set them up to do that. They will go home afterwards and be like, oh my gosh, I just shared my view and I felt kind of good about it. That's why you're here. You're here to create the conditions for people to find a powerful voice for change in the world. Now, sometimes you may need to be an advocate, but avoid it if you can. And when you do talk about it, speak it as a fellow traveler, as someone else who's on the journey. Try to minimize your role as an advocate. Also, don't spend too much time. Try not to be in the mode of defending the model. Like, oh, the model's right, you're wrong. Sometimes you do need to step up strongly and say, here's why I have confidence in the model. But try not to get into too oppositional a role with anybody. You're here to help them learn. You're not here to defend, although you may need to. This is why I said minimize your role. So that's the orientation I really want you to adopt. If anything, Buckminster Fuller said it really well. What are we doing here? We're creating these conditions where people are using a new tool. He said, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't teach them, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. Your job is to give them this tool and then create the conditions that will lead to new ways of thinking. And new ways of thinking, systems thinking. This is a tightly coupled system. New ways of thinking. People in love with their dreams, being able to see a scenario of success. New ways of thinking, able to reflect on their assumptions, change their thinking, and learn. These are some of the things that we really want to do. You can't teach that. You can't say, go do that. You're creating the conditions, fertile conditions for people to learn. That's what you're doing. You're cultivating their learning. Where learning is building the capacity to take effective action. The most important word on this slide is action. You are here to help them take effective action on their own terms. You're not telling them what to do. You're not saying you must. You're helping create those conditions for learning, where learning is building the capacity for effective action. If the whole workshop were basically welcome, and then the lights went out, and the power went out, and you couldn't show the model, the most important thing to do is, okay, climate change is happening. What are we going to do about it? That's the most important thing. Better futures are possible. You could make a difference. What are we going to do about it? That's the most important part of the workshop. Again, your goal is not, oh, here's a cool tool, check it out. That's easy. That's online. Anyone can go do that. Your goal is not just this. Okay. Everything I just said and everything I'm about to say is pretty much captured in the facilitator guide we took last summer. And Yazzie and Caroline and many others on the phone here have worked on this, written a facilitator guide. So go over into GoToWebinar, and there in your handouts in GoToWebinar over on the right, if you click on it, it says En-ROADS Workshop Facilitator Guide.pdf. You see that over on the right? Go download that and read it, not now, but later. And also, Caroline, can you send that to everybody right now, just a link to where that is? So go read the facilitator guide. We've written this down. That said, I'm just going to talk about some of the material that's there, but how to set up and sell the workshop. And this is important, right? You want to like get people to attend. What is the way of talking about this that gets people to show up? And I find it's this quote from my mentor, the co-developer of this workshop and the tool, Dr. John Sterman from MIT Sloan. Research shows that showing people research doesn't work. And you have to say it kind of slowly like that. Research shows that showing people research doesn't work. Say that to people who might think of attending. They always laugh and they go, oh, you're right. We've been just showing research for like 30 years and we're not getting enough action. So this is a great way to set up why we're running this workshop and why they should attend. People need to learn on their own terms. That's what we're doing for this workshop. And of course, we do also have materials. Can you send the, Caroline, I think there's a media kit. Yeah, the media kit that we have with our logo and other materials. So those are very practical things that will really help. But that's the argument that helps the most. Okay, so how do you set up a workshop? There are 4 sections. First, you need a hook. It can't just be, oh, welcome, how do we get to 2 degrees? Tie it to something that is alive in people. If you attended on Tuesday, our workshop, it was tied to economic recovery and stimulus. So the whole thing was set up as, oh my gosh, we're about to invest trillions of dollars in economic recovery. Will that shift us towards addressing climate or actually making it even worse? Find a hook that's clear and present. Like here you're in a community. Oh, there's a new climate bill that's coming up, or a new law or a new event or a new report. The main way that we suggest it, and you'll see in the facilitator guide, is acknowledging recent actions. You can use the hook to be, what have we done in the last 5 years that we think would really help the climate. Particularly if people are defensive and they think we're going to accuse people of not doing enough. Just say, all right, what have we done? Oh my gosh, we've done a lot with energy efficiency here. If everybody in the world did that, how would that help us? Use that as a hook with the simulator. Or start with the silver bullet. Make fun of some other policy. The trillion trees policy got a lot of press recently. How much would it help? Start with the silver bullet. So those are the big three that we use lately. So start with a hook. Then the guts of the workshop, of course, as you've probably seen, is to build slowly a scenario of success. To get the temperature from heading up to 4.1 degrees down well below 3, ideally below 2, maybe 1.5. Create that scenario by testing the simulator and improving people's understanding of what it's going to take. You'll learn a lot more about those in workshops 4 and 5, about what the different levers are, how they work, what they do in the system. Then it shifts a good bit. It's very intense, you're creating the scenarios, and then you're going to have the time to reflect a bit. 60 seconds of silence. 60 seconds of silence. It's a long time, it's powerful. The goal with this workshop is to touch mind and hearts. And you need what is called a pattern interrupt. You need to shift the gears a little bit. You need to have something that's very different for people's brains to really let the information in. We find that 60 seconds of silence works really well. I'll share some of the questions that you are going to ask later. Basically, what would you love about winning? Having people think about what they would really love, perhaps some conversation about hope and possibility, and then finally a call to action. Now, along the way, I'll show you later that the multi-solving framing, the idea that because we want to make sure that we're really addressing climate justice, equity, and all these other considerations, we need to mention co-benefits. We also need to make sure that whatever policies we put in place aren't going to disproportionately hurt the people that we're trying to help. So along the way, multi-solving framing, and we'll show you more on that later, is going to help. But then number 4, the call to action. Of course, you're going to say, what now? So what are we going to do? Okay, so to set up the workshop, what you're going to do, usually it's like, you don't really need PowerPoint. That said, we have PowerPoint slides. If you'd like PowerPoint to guide you through this process and these questions, Caroline, can you send everybody those slides, the PowerPoint slides? And I think they may actually be right here. Yes. So go into your handouts, Workshop Slides 2020. They're the PowerPoint slides. The first 30 times I led this workshop over the last 10 years, I used these slides because it's really helpful to know what's next. You can't memorize all this as you're learning. So here are the workshop slides. Use them. As you get better, you can ditch PowerPoint and use, just if you want, give them just this control panel. Caroline, can you send everybody the control panel? And it's actually in your handouts as well. People like a piece of paper. You're going to give them this piece of paper that shows them the actions and levers that they can change. That's the only real setup you need. And then I'm going to show you in a minute how we make sure to set up the base run of the scenario, but also orient people to the interface. How could you learn how to lead this? We made a video. It's 20 minutes long, and it's on the guided assignment page. Caroline, can you send that to everybody right now? So if you want to, and I would suggest with this, just learn how do we do it, watch this video, and it shows you exactly how we lay it out. Now, it's longer than you would usually use, but you can thin it back. But it shows the exact words we use. It's also in the facilitator guide. So watch that video. And Caroline, anything, I'll just check, is that going through, and are these materials able to go through chat?
Yep, sending them both through chat and in the handout, so all good.
Great. Okay, so I'll mention some of these tips. So as you set this up, and I'll show you this scenario in a minute in the model, the first scenario, but so, and this is where I'm going to show you some of our tricks. The first trick is that when you engage people, you've got a global model. It is the entire world. You're in a city. You're in a neighborhood. You're talking about one little country of 195 countries at most. You're talking about one business with one supply chain. So undersell the relevance of the simulator to your company, to your community, to your state, to your country. So it's tempting to say, oh, this is the greatest model and it's going to be so important and so relevant. No, you want to undercommit and over-deliver. So what you want to say as people are like, hey, Sally, I understand that I'm coming to this thing on Thursday. What is it again? You're not going to say this is such a helpful model because it's a global model. So what you do is you're going to use it and you're going to say, well, it's going to show us what's going on globally, what's needed, what really helps and what doesn't help, what some of the interconnections are. We're going to get to see this challenge as a system with a really cool, fun, engaging model. And then we're going to put it aside and we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to really talk about what's going on here in our community, in our state, in our company, because it's totally different there. So the point is, you're not going to overpromise. You're going to undersell the relevance. Okay. The other thing is that you're going to, and this is just a trick, I got to say, like, I've learned how to come across probably as smarter as I actually am. I'm just another guy trying to help on this issue, but I've learned some tricks to making it sound like I am much more grounded and understand a lot more about the model and the world than I actually do. I'm not proud of this, but here's a trick, is in the first 5 minutes of your presentation, you're going to share some impressive sounding numbers that you've memorized. With the model, you're going to blast them early on with some numbers. And that's going to signal to some of the people who want to test you, or they want to show others that they're smart and you're wrong, or they want to shut you down. It's going to show those people not to mess with you and they will back off. So I've listed here some of these facts that you could memorize, and then I'm going to show you how you use it in the model. It's a little manipulative, but frankly, this is the way the professionals do it. So you're going to drop some numbers, and that's going to be, you're just going to say, oh, here in our state, 73% of our energy comes from coal. And don't say a lot, say 73, use a number. You're going to mention, and I'll show you in a minute where it would be, something weird like the carbon density of different fuels. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about coal. And as you probably know, or may not know, coal has 90 kilograms of CO2 per million BTU. Oil is 70, gas is 54. These are some of the other numbers. Renewable energy progress ratio, where we say that every doubling of cumulative capacity of wind and solar brings a 20% drop in costs. That sentence, say it early, and what it does is it informs people, but it also shows you know what you're talking about. Or I mentioned here the population in different years, the climate sensitivity to a doubling of carbon. And these are some of the facts that you can mention. You're also going to recite your 5-point En-ROADS model background speech. So early on when you're introducing the model, or someone is going to say to you, where did you get your data? Have you ever heard this one? You've heard this one. Where did you get your data? Where did you get your data is not, I want to know where you got your data, although you need to answer that question. What you need to do, they're asking, why should I believe you? Or can I test you? Can I shut you down? Do you know the model well enough to present it? So what I'm going to suggest you do is you memorize this 5-point speech and say it pretty much like this. And I've encouraged Caroline and Yazzie and Cassandra and others on the call here to just say this. Climate Interactive and MIT Sloan have built En-ROADS simulator using the best available science with sources. And you can mention some of the IEA, mention an acronym, know what it is, the International Energy Agency, the IPCC. These are some of the sources. All the parameters and all the equations are shared in our reference guide. It's big, it's almost 400 pages now. Caroline, can you send that to everybody right now? Send them the reference guide and have it there, and you can show it to people. And we calibrated our model against the very large research models that are built by these research groups all around the world. We made sure that our simulator, or that their simulator, En-ROADS, is calibrated to the best of the research models that are out there. And if someone disagrees with some of the assumptions, you can change many of them. We're transparent. So memorize that and just say it. Okay. Other points on this is number 4. Early on, demonstrate it's okay to be wrong and change your mind. If you see an opportunity, if somebody points out you did something wrong, like, I don't know, you don't have the screen on in the right way, this is a time, just as you're confident about your understanding of whatever you understand about the model, you need to show that you're open to changing your mind. It's also important to signal that all views are welcome. I'm not a big fan personally of nuclear power. I'm very personally concerned about nuclear power waste and waste disposal. However, early in the workshop, when somebody says, I'm excited about nuclear power, as a facilitator, I want to welcome that and say, great, let's test it in the model. It's important to signal early that you're open to a wide range of views and you're not going to personally disagree. So signal that early on. And as you've seen when I've run this workshop, never go more than 10 minutes in your event without moving a slider. It's so sexy that first time that those flags move and people are so excited. That's really cool. So always move something in the model really early on. Okay, those are my tips about your setup. So let's switch over and I'm going to walk you through how we actually run a scenario in En-ROADS. So here we are with good old En-ROADS. And what I'd like to show you is how you talk someone through one of the scenarios. The first thing to do is make sure you orient people well to various aspects here. Always mention first the time horizon, 2000 to 2100. Always talk them through what they see on the graphs by pointing to the lines, mentioning the colors and what they represent. Now, I'm not going to give you everything about how to introduce these scenarios right now. Watch the video, read it, it's all laid out there. But here's some of the tips that people often miss, and I want to make sure you catch. So when you're talking about those scenarios, you say, this is a graph that goes from 2000 out to 2100, the next 80 years. And here we can see coal in brown, oil in red, blue is natural gas. Talk them through exactly what they see. Over on the right, you're going to talk them through whatever the measure is. Try to use accessible language. This is the pollution, greenhouse gas net emissions. This is the stuff causing global warming. And then over on the right, show them what the temperature is. Orient them to this. You'll see in the video, we often like talking people through the Kaya graphs. This is a really powerful way for you to understand what's going on, but also people want to know a little bit deeper of the drivers of change over time. This is a powerful way to do it. When you engage people with a scenario, so of course in the workshop you say, what would you like to test? And someone says, oh, new technology. It's really tempting to go over here and just hit the button and say, oh, let's see what the result is. You're not going to do this. You are absolutely going to slow down and go through these important steps. You don't just use it as an answer machine of like, okay, what does it do? What's the answer? What you do is you slow down. Someone will say, oh, I'd like to see a new technology. If you can, draw them out and ask which technologies come to mind. What are you imagining, to make sure you really understand what they're saying, and then restate back to them examples. If you don't know what to say for what the examples are, you click on the three dots, you click on the little I here, and here is the definition. And you could give examples that it's, oh, thorium-based nuclear fission, nuclear fusion. These are examples. And then over here, research and development. This is not CO2 removal. And then over on the right, you can see that there are many examples and information that you could share. Then you say, oh, great, you want to see research and development. Try to mention something about current events. Andrew Yang was a presidential candidate here in the US. He talked a lot about this. Bill Gates talked about it. So mention some things in current events and have everybody understand what we're talking about. Then you say, where is it in the model? It's down here under new technology. And you say, I'm about to change this. Then your goal is to get people to think, what will the effect be? You've got to do that. You've got to get people thinking in their head. If they're just going to wait and see, they don't learn. They've got to make some prediction, whether they say it to everybody. Often I like doing that. When I'm in a classroom, I will pull up a whiteboard and have people literally type in what they think the effect will be on temperature, but more importantly, over here in a more proximal indicator. The proximal indicator will be over here with how it changes the fuel mix. So I'll ask in this case, okay, we're going to see a new technology, explain what it does. It takes 10 years to commercialize, then it's going to show up. What line do we think is going to change the most? Coal in brown, oil in red, blue, natural gas, wind and solar in green? Are they going to go up or down? Very specific question, have them think. Then say, okay, watch over here. Direct their eyes where you want them looking. Otherwise, they don't know what to look at. A lot of things are going to change. So ideally, have them speak it out, or you say, turn to the person next to you, or write into question box. Then you're going to test it. I'm going to crank this all the way up. Okay, I just made the change. Now, use this button of replay last change. And every time you hit it, it'll replay it 3 times. Keep hitting that button. People's brains can process relative change. It can't just be static. It's got to be a relative change. So you'll hit it again and you'll say, okay, what did it do? Watch the orange line. That is all the energy demand that's met by this new technology. Then you say, what changed the most? The question you asked before. Oh, the brown line of coal. Look, coal goes down here, 2030, 2040, it goes down a good bit. That's keeping coal in the ground, but also blue natural gas. Oh, it didn't do much with oil. Why? Explain what's going on. Also, well, what else did it have? What other, not as good side effects? Well, what did it do to wind and solar? It kind of hurt wind and solar, so it's competing with another source. Talk through what's going on in the system, and then lead people towards what the insight is that, well, it's not a silver bullet. It helps. It doesn't solve the whole problem. It's not a silver bullet. What would that mean? And then you talk about implications. The key thing of this is that it's when people say, why did that happen? Why did it not help as much as I thought it would? You're never going to say, because the model said so. Or you're never going to imply because the model said so. What you're going to do is either know what the answer is, that is what's going on in the system, or you're going to know how to figure it out. And you don't have to memorize everything. It's more, let's look around and see what's going on. And of course, if you click here, you're going to look at graphs. Say, oh my gosh, I can see this graph on coal. Coal went down a lot. And what happened to oil? Well, it didn't really change much. Let's dig around and see what happened there. Also, other impacts. In this case, there are impacts elsewhere in the system. Look around, pull up the graphs and say, oh, cost of energy. Wait, energy got really cheap. Well, yeah, the idea of thorium fission is it's really cheap. Well, what else did that do? Energy demand. Oh, energy demand went up. Oh, there's another impact. So you either need to know what's going on or know how to look around, be a good scientist, and figure out what's going on in the system. So what I just led you through is how you would talk people through a scenario. And it's really critical that you take all of these steps, restate and translate to the real world, show where it fits in En-ROADS, direct their eyes to a near-term effect, ask them to simulate in their heads in some way, replay last change, replay last change over and over, show a near-term effect, show a long-term effect, explain the behavior, why the system behaves as it does, and then talk about what that means, explore implications, and never say because the model says so. Welcome them into a discovery of what's going on in the system. But we're also going to explain a lot to you in the workshops number 4 and 5, where we're going to show you a lot of the dynamics in the model. All right, along the way, here's some helpful tips. Keep a second tab with the simulator. So here we are, and say you made this change, and you're going to also do a lot of other things in the model. Here I am, and I'm making changes. And so say you're creating some scenario here. At some time, people are going to say, well, what about electrified transport or something you're going to want to try alone? Keep another tab open. Then you can just say, oh, well, let's just electrify transport. Keep another tab open. You may want to just try something alone. Give them the mouse or send them the simulator. I'm going to do it right now. So that scenario that I just made, if you're in the middle of a session, go to the top right corner, copy scenario link, go here to the chat box, and send people multiple times. Why not? Give them the simulator. Get their fingers and hands on it. I just sent you, look in the chat box. You can pull up this scenario, try it yourself. You saw those pictures of us with Jay Inslee and John Kerry and Kathy Castor. We give them the model, put their fingers on the keyboard so that they can try it themselves. Engage a second person to help is tip number 3. Right now you can hear that right now Caroline is acting as host. It's very helpful if you can to have someone else. When we do this in person, we'll have a facilitator and someone else will run the model. So helpful to have someone flying. Take a picture, tweet your final scenario with the world. That's really powerful. Other things just about online engagement. I don't know if it came through, but I made my cursor really, really big. When you talk, focus. I'm looking right now at the green dot at the camera. And it's important. I've seen a lot of people present the model online, and this tip, it's hard the first few times. It's tempting to kind of look down and look away. And here I am, I'm looking at a laptop. It's so weird. Summon that confidence that you're going to have to focus straight. Imagine people who are out there. I'm trying to think of the hundreds of people out there who are looking at me right now who want to know what we have to share. Focus with confidence right at the green dot. And you have to do a mental leap to get in the mode to teach this way, but you can do it. Use the chat box, use the questions box, use the polls. We're going to use the poll in a minute if you have that on the online setup that you have. Caroline, can you send the online tips document that you just wrote with Yazzie and others? This has many of these other tips that we have for you. We also did a whole training on how to use our tools online. Okay, here are some of the slides and questions that you're going to ask along the way. I showed you, basically, you're going to have a hook of a question that you're curious about. You're going to have, then you're going to say, how do we get to 2 degrees? And you're going to be testing the model and showing each time what the effect is, getting down to 2 degrees. Along the way, there are good questions you can ask to have people understand more about multi-solving. And the simplest is when people propose an action, say, what's your action? Oh, I want to see energy efficiency in buildings and industry. Then you ask, what would be other benefits to take this action other than the climate? And you can say, well, there are health benefits to people in cold climates having insulated homes. And those are significant health benefits, for example. Ask this question. As you get down towards 2 degrees, you're going to actually summarize at some point. And this is the summary that we usually use, that in most all the sessions, we get to these big points. People will test usually 10 or 15 different policies. And then you'll summarize 3 main points. The first one is, it takes more than 1 seed to plant a garden. Bill McKibben said it well, and we've often said it well, as there's no silver bullet. I don't like the military gun metaphor, so we've been trying this other one. It takes more than 1 seed to plant a garden. That is, no one action, even a carbon price, which is really powerful, no one thing is going to address this climate challenge. You have to plant many seeds in the areas of energy supply, energy demand, land, forest, ag, the economy, the population, consumption, the community level, at the business level, at the state level, at the country level, at the global level. It's going to take action, more than 1 seed to plant the garden. That's the first, say, 1 or 2 points. No silver bullet, it takes silver buckshot. It takes many seeds. Then it's possible. Spend the time to stop there when you get to that scenario. Here I was making this scenario, and you're going to get your emissions all the way down to well below 2 degrees. You can see this right now, right? So it's important in every session you run, get people to see this kind of scenario. We don't talk about success in this field enough. Talk about the fact that it's possible. This is where you're going to spend your 60 seconds of silence. It's possible. And then also the 4th point is, notice that all successful scenarios keep most available fossil fuels in the ground. This is not going to be solved with just land, forest, and ag, and methane, and these other gases and carbon removal. Focus direction where leverage is, which will be ultimately not burning coal, oil, and gas, because that's the main driver of climate change. It also will be, at some point, one of the main ways that we prevent the challenge. You will spend that 60 seconds. Sometimes when I get hasty, I'll make it 30 seconds, but spend the time with 60 seconds of silence. Then you have this opportunity to ask 2 big questions. What would you love about being part of a world that was making this scenario happen? We ask this question, people write in their questions box. It is beautiful to see the answers that they come up with. Take the time to ask the question, why people are falling in love with the scenario they'd really like to see. Then, what is the next right thing to do? What are you going to do now? This is the call to action. Make sure you take the time to say, and it's not like you expect everyone to say, oh, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go start a nonprofit. No, you really have to ask. Some people could say, well, I just want to go do some more reading, or I'm not ready because that's not fitting my life right now for whatever reason. You are going to really ask, what is the next right thing to do? And have people declare it publicly, write it in the question box, or just say it to themselves. In some way, push to the call to action. Along the way, there are so many materials that are going to help you learn how to do this. We have videos where you can watch us in a 10-minute format, one-on-one. And Caroline, can you send the links to the videos? Go watch these videos to see examples. You'll copy how John Sturman does it, how Linda Chung does it, how Bindu and Caroline and others who are in these videos and Ellie run these events, how Florian and Juliet, many of the people who have posted them. You can watch people run them. Here's some other links. Caroline and others, if you can post these, there are media resources. So you can use descriptions of the model and logos. There are the slides that we have. We also have a whole file of supplemental slides that could help you that are on the materials page. A communications kit. You'll find a student assignment. When you run the workshop, and I do it with my students, I lead them through this, and then I give them an assignment. And they have 2 weeks to go home and play with the model and answer a bunch of questions. We have a forum where people can, you can go and ask questions of other facilitators. And then the registration page in the map. If you run a session, please promise me that you will register it on our map. So some of the keys of how you're going to do this and how to get better in your learning journey, to go from not able to do it to good, the most important thing will be to learn why the simulator does what it does. We have 2 trainings, number 4 and number 5. It's going to be you go into those trainings, play with the model, write down questions of yourself. Why did the red line go up? I thought it should go down. Learn the model. But to go to that next level from good to great will be about learning how to engage and facilitate well, how to make it a powerful learning experience. And some of our other trainings focus on that. Along the way, I want to encourage you to speak confidently about the model, but to avoid some of the language that I've heard when I've dropped in on other sessions. So instead of the model proves, this model doesn't prove anything. It suggests. Speak more like a scientist when you're presenting the model, particularly early on. It doesn't forecast. It doesn't predict. You create scenarios. Just a subtle change in language. You're not going to say that the model is right. No model is right. It's appropriate to its purpose is how we talk about it. We don't say that the model has been validated. That would be the same as it's right. We've built confidence in the model. And it's not better than the other simulators that are out there. It complements many of the large research models that are so important. There's some language here that will be helpful as you make this distinction. If you want to dig into how to talk that way about the model and why we speak about it that way, we did a whole video on it. Caroline, can you send the link to the one, it's actually the one on the left here, EnROADS Confidence Building Webinar, a full hour on how we talk about the confidence that we built in the model. So those are some suggestions about the science, but the real power of how you'll make this great as opposed to good will be to search for moments when the conversation deepens. Do you get a sense that we're not just talking about a model, but we're talking at a deeper level about people's hopes, aspirations, dreams, where they're stuck, what's holding people back from action? That's what you're looking for. Can you find a moment and hold people in that moment when there's something powerful happening, when you see people really are changing the way that they think about this issue? I'm going to skip over some of these top 10 ways. I think I've covered a good bit of them. So here we are. I've just laid out, and I know this has been a real drink from the fire hose, but our call to you is that we're seeking 7,700 ambassadors, 7,700 people. That's 1 per million humans on Earth who are empowered with the simulator, engaging other people around the world. This was where we were 2 months ago. We're at many more today. We'd love to have you join us in what we're calling the EnROADS Climate Ambassador Program. Many of you are already engaged with this. Some of you actually are ambassadors. And this is a unique leadership opportunity to become a leader in your field. We have 138 people who've gone through this whole series of trainings, but also some other actions in order to become an ambassador. Can you send the link right now, Caroline? So here's some of the reasons that we think it could be really powerful for you. It's a bit of a credential to say that you have this, but it really welcomes you to this community like Molly and Alice earlier, people who are using this kind of approach to make a difference in the world. What you're going to do is you're going to attend these webinars, read the materials, you're going to watch other people lead it and practice, and then you're going to run 2 sessions, get feedback from 5 people, take a short test. It's not an evaluative test. It's more to help you cement your learning and submit a form. And then take this tool out into these domains in order to make a big difference. So I do want to ask, curious about this poll that we have right here. And hopefully you're asking questions along the way. I know I'm going to pull up this poll. We're really curious. I know it's 8:02. We're a little bit, this is going a little bit long, but we're just so curious to see where you might use this. So people who are still on and still with us, where might you use this? What is the domain where you think you would use this tool the most? We're really curious about where it is in civil society, education, government, business, other, maybe you're in media, like Bill McKibben, who was sharing our tool. Really curious to see where you might use this tool. Oh, this is great. So many of you are voting. Here they come. So which would be the area where you might use this most? Where the votes are coming in really fast and strong. This is great. I'm looking down to see how many people are showing up with your votes. Keep on voting, keep on voting. Here they come. Wow, over 70% have voted so far. So keep voting and keep putting your words in there. Boy, 80% is a good number of people. Okay. Want to see what those results are. 36% in education, 25% civil society, 19% business and government. Wow, what a good spread across all of you. So these are many of the domains where you could really use this tool. Fantastic. Would you write? We're really curious, where will you lead the workshop when you're fully trained? What is the specific setting? We'd love to hear you write right now. Go to the questions box if you would. We'd love to hear where people are going to be using this. With my friends, with my family, with my business, with my students. We'd love to see what answers you're coming up with. And I know we're going a little bit late, but many of you are hanging in there for more than the hour that we talked about originally. Appreciate you hanging in there. We'd love to see you go to the questions box and where would you run this? Caroline, are you seeing answers of where people, can you read some of the answers? I'm curious to see what people are saying. So write in the question box.
Yeah, people are just starting to write in. So I'm seeing with my friends from grad school and a classroom, working with civil society, education, government as well, with my fellow environmental engineers, the Rotary Club, high schools, universities, business schools.
Fantastic.
Middle East countries, environment ministry.
Wow.
Their nature society. Tons of responses coming in. This is exciting.
Fantastic. With the theology group, with my colleagues in the renewable industry, educating other educators, Singapore. All right. With my students in gaming and management, gamers, 𝑵𝑶𝑻𝑬, fantastic. So many of you making a difference out there in the world. Keep writing it in. We're so curious about it. Okay, so now's the time. How to learn to do this? Here is your homework. Before the next training in a week, here is your homework. Engage a friend, someone ideally maybe in your COVID pod with the simulator. So here's what we imagined. Of course, many of you live with very high leverage, important decision makers. Here's the kind of setting we imagine that you're going to be running it with. Clearly, this is the best opportunity of you and someone in your home, even if it's your cat. Lead this workshop with somebody. And when I say that, well, all I mean is say, here's a simulator. Let's try some things. Apply some of the tools that I just mentioned. You're not going to be able to apply all of them, but engage somebody or another creature in running a scenario. There's a really nice video of Linda Chung doing this with a friend of hers. Could you send that link right now, Caroline, to the video of Caroline doing it? And it's very simple. Have them create a scenario. You're not going to be able to explain everything, but this is with a friend, so it's okay. The key is start learning how to have that conversation. Again, where you're being a coach, you're helping them find their way around the simulator, and you're helping them improve their thinking about what's possible. Doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to be starting to engage people. We haven't trained you entirely, but get going anyways. And take a picture. Please take a picture and post it to Twitter, #EnROADS, or email it to us at support@climateinteractive.org. Please, please, please. And then at the next training, we're going to show you pictures, because what you're doing besides learning this model and spreading insights about high leverage ways to address climate, you are building hope and possibility to say there are people out there who care, who are doing things. We want to see your pictures. Post it to Twitter, email it here. That is your homework. Okay, so right into right now, well, we don't have time for the questions, but we're really curious about who I want to see it. We have the time. Write in the questions box, who are you going to do your homework with? Who are you going to do your homework with? Please write in the questions box. This is important. And why do I ask you to do this? People need to publicly state what they're going to do. When you get to this is a call to action. You've got to have a call to action. And if people publicly state their call to action, they're more likely to actually do it. So write in the questions box right now, with whom are you going to do your homework? Who are you doing your homework with? Caroline, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing with my son, my colleague in the office, my friends, family,
Great.
neighbor, roommates, husbands, spouses, peers in my office, demo with college friends, teenage son, lots of family members, with my staff at the environment ministry, flatmates, lots of
Someone says, if there's going to be a photo, then I really want my dog. Thank you. Please, we want a picture with your dog and you looking at the simulator. It sounds great. Cross-species workshops. Keep going. Who else?
Let's see. We're seeing sustainability science, I think teachers, a lot of people with their partners, their friends, instructional coordinators. Yeah, tons of great responses.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. All right, so the next thing is, say to yourself, Dear Drew, I hereby pledge to register all the workshops that I lead, even the practice ones. We want to know that you're out there. We really want to know what's going on. So what you're going to do is here on this En-ROADS page, you're going to get to register it, and then you're going to be on this map that is now 20,000 participants. We want to know. And then see the button, add your event to the map. You're going to click on that, and you're just going to say, I was here in Asheville, North Carolina, and I showed it to my dog. Please let us know. Please pledge to register all your workshops so we know. It also helps us as Climate Interactive go to our funders and say, actually, we are spending your money well by putting this material online, and we're making a difference in the world. Be part of this community of people. This is hope. This is possibility. This is a declaration in the world that says, yes, we are taking action. We're going to do all we can do to avoid these worst case scenarios. We're going to do all that we can do. What's the payoff? The payoff, of course, is getting on to some of these paths we know are so important. The payoff is going to be a world that addresses this challenge head on and prevents all that we can prevent. So think for yourself. Here's the other question. What would you love about being part of a community of people using this tool and other things to make that kind of scenario happen? Write it in your questions box right now. What would you love about being part of a community of people that's building grounded hope? Write it in your questions box right now. Write in the questions box. What would you love about being part of a world that was making those kind of scenarios happen? I'm curious to see what you're coming up with. Caroline, are people writing yet? What do we see?
Not quite. We will just wait a second for our responses.
What would you love about being part of this? Please write into the questions box. I know it gets me out of bed in the morning just to know that there are so many people along with me in this journey. What would you love? Write in the questions box. I know this one is not a 3-word answer, but as brief as possible, what would you love? Caroline.
A world worth living in, transforming businesses for good, being aligned with my calling, optimism for growing in a survivable future for my daughters, making a difference, worldview shift in our society, feeling energized about the future, sustainable future for the next generations.
Yeah, the feeling of making a difference, sustainable future for the next generation, a bright future for my son, a U.S. Congress that works together to mitigate climate change. I would love my friends to know that we can make a difference, give them hope. What else do you see, Caroline? And read slowly. Let's let people really milk this, like take it in. This is such wonderful words. Go ahead.
Getting people to think deeply and broadly about solutions, arousing people's curiosity, the feeling of helping make an impact, being part of a community of value.
Wonderful. I would feel more motivated instead of defeated. I'd feel a sense of control over climate change, leaving a legacy. Mejor futuro, better future, I think that means. What else?
Leaving the planet, or leaving this planet that we can live in, and transforming a paradigm of what it means to live together. Engaging with change makers, being able to live in an equitable world where basic quality of life is ensured.
Fantastic. Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay. So again, can you send the registration to the next time we're running this? It's in June, Caroline. Come and watch us actually run the workshop if you haven't seen it yet, or watch us run it again, watch a video. But overall, if there are other questions you have, send us a full email at support@climateinteractive.org. Overall, we welcome you to this group of people using this workshop to make a difference. It's not going to be easy, my friends. It's going to be worth it. Go get them. And we are going to stick around if there's some more questions to answer. We'll be around for a few more minutes answering questions. So if you had one, write it again and we'll try to get to it. So we're going to be here for a few more minutes.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and answer the first question, Drew, which a lot of people have been asking just about general resource management. How can we watch the recording from this session, get the slides, get the recording from the last session, and so forth?
Great.
So we will be sharing a follow-up email with everyone on this call later this afternoon. So anything you need in terms of links we shared in the chat, slides from this presentation, resources to run the workshop, and both the recording of this session and last week's session will all be on the email. So everything you need will come all in one, and you can expect that email to come every Thursday after the training. So if there's ever a week where you can't make it, you can expect and count on that recording being shared with you. So that's a great question. Let me look and see what else people are asking. And on a similar note, I'm seeing a question, if they miss the first week of class, how do you catch up? You've already gotten off to a great start just by attending this. If you're really, really interested, you can watch the recording of last week's session, which we'll send, but really, you can just start here and review all of the resources that Drew has covered in today's presentation and practice the exercises that we've recommended for next week. I would think, Drew, don't you think that that's sufficient in terms of moving forward?
Yeah, and I'm seeing a good question, Yumi Fukushima, about translating the materials into Japanese. Yes, you can translate them, absolutely. This is all being shared open source. And Caroline, I seem to remember that someone's done that. So let us connect you with them, because some of it might be done already. Send us an email to support and we'll connect you with the person who's done it. Of course, our intention, and over time, we will be posting them in Japanese and in other languages.
And I saw on a similar note, someone was asking earlier about Spanish, and reiterating that we are, working really hard to get these translated. And we will be talking about the climate action simulation game next week. And we actually already have some resources for that in Spanish, which we will be sure to share.
Great. Someone wrote, how does it work to run 2 simulations and get feedback on them? Will one of your staff register for my workshop? So, Catherine, the way this works, and for everybody, is we're offering the training and all the materials, and we're asking you to run to events with your colleagues, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your community. That's what we mean is, and then tell us about it. We're not showing up for the, we're curious to hear how it goes when you do it. And you'll submit a form that says, oh, I ran it with this group of people. That's what we mean by running 2 simulations and registering it with us. And someone asked, oh, good questions. People are writing in our answers. Thank you, team. Others who are on the call. Other questions that you saw maybe in the past that came up, Caroline?
Yeah, we were able to answer a lot of them in typing, so we are doing pretty well. Maybe
Great.
just could you show on your screen the training plan, because that gives people a good sense of the overview of the training program.
Yeah.
And I'll drop the link in chat.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I think it was how to become an ambassador. So what we're asking you to do is, number 1, as you're doing right now, attend the webinars. And if you missed number 1, don't worry about it. You've probably caught up now. Read the materials. Watch 2 others lead it in person or in video. Practice. Lead 2 sessions. Get feedback. And complete the test later. When you're all done, submit a form. And all of this material is here on the website. I'll go to the workshop page and the training, complete the training plan. Here's the overall training plan. So you can read all of this here on the website. And Caroline, maybe you can send this in chat. Here's the materials of everything that you need to see.
Yep, I've sent that.
Other questions that you see?
Someone asked if they want to run a workshop in their own language, do you have any advice of what steps they should follow? So this might come in the form of them creating their own materials, but if you have any tips there.
Yeah, I would say send us an email and see, has it been created already? We have, for example, there's some people who are working in Spanish, and they have some materials that we've been assembling that aren't on the website yet. But overall, do your best. Some people just translate the slides and they don't work on the other handouts. Some people go all the way through making the handouts. Do what you can, and we promise to make it better at some point when we make everything in multiple languages. Other questions that you see, or should we wrap up?
I think we're good to wrap up.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to end, and if you want to see it again, we're doing it at 2 p.m. today. All right. This is the end. We're going to close, and goodbye, everybody.